This conference will now.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this webinar on giving your customers the wow experience. We're going to start on that in a few minutes' time. I'm delighted to have Mr. Nigel Greenwood, who's ex-head of customer loyalty at Lloyds Bank, so has got great credentials about what we're doing here. But first of all, we obviously always like to give you an update as to where we're going. First things first, the usual disclaimer that we have to read out, that the following presentation is produced for general guidance only and professional advice should always be sought before any transaction is undertaken. Individual circumstances can vary and therefore no responsibility can be accepted by Harts Limited or any of their affiliates for any action taken or any decision made to refrain from action by attendees of this presentation. As always, this session is being recorded. It'll be up on our YouTube channel later on today. So if you've missed anything, you want to go over anything, then you'll be able to do that on YouTube. If you've got any questions, feel free to either unmute yourself or and shout out, or stick them in the chat box. You'll see a square box in the top right hand corner of your screen. If you click into that, you can be able to load some questions into there, and we can go through those either as we're going along or at the end. Now, current update, what is happening and what isn't happening? Well, this is as at today, and because there's been so many changes, we can't tell you what has been and hasn't been and what might be. But as it stands as at today, we don't have the increase in the national insurance rate. And you will start to see an increase in your net pay because the national insurance rate amount has been reduced back down to where we were. We have the continuing stamp duty land tax cut that has gone back to where it was and below previously. We do have the corporation tax increase that is coming in from April 23 of 25%. Now, don't cry over that. It only applies if your profits are in excess of 50,000. So for smaller companies, it will remain at 19%. There is a sliding scale after that, and then the top rate will become 25%. We have the increase in dividend tax by 1.25%. That is coming in. The basic rate of income tax is not going down to 19%. It's staying at 20%. The top rate of tax hasn't been reduced. It's remaining at 45%. The ban on fracking has come in. Just thought I'd chuck that one in there. IR35 rules remain where the engager decides the status. So in fact, it takes away the risk from a lot of small businesses as to them determining whether they are under IR35 or not. It's now the engager decides. However, and this is the big but, we have our autumn statement next week on the 17th of November. And there has been all sorts of talk swirling around the press, and we've got talks of increase in capital gains tax, increase in dividend tax, and maybe even aligning capital gains tax to the income tax rate. We just don't know. So really, it's watch this space. So that's as it is as at today. As from next week, it could be completely different. We will let you know. We will be sending out a budget update or an autumn statement update, which will be able to tell you what's been going on. Finally, the energy price support is still there, but it's only lasting till March next year. So you just need to be aware that there may well be something in the autumn statement next week, which may be far more targeted than giving everybody a cap. But let's wait and see what happens. So that's really all we can say on it at the moment. A lot of uncertainty. Hopefully Rishi and Mr. Hunt will be able to sort that out next week and give us a bit more stability, but that remains to be seen. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with us on all our resources. So you can follow us on LinkedIn at Harts Limited. You can follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube at Harts Limited, and you'll see all the old videos and testimonials, webinars, and so on, which we've done. Follow us on Twitter at Harts Accountants, and we are now on Spotify. We have a number of podcasts which are going out on Spotify, some fascinating interviews with various people about their work and how they do it, what experiences they've had, how one client is actually how they've grown their business to get to where they are now. Other people have talked about their experiences in business and so on. So some very interesting stuff you can read or listen to rather in the car on the way home. So follow us on Spotify. Our next up and coming events next week, also on the 17th of November, we have our usual business club lunch and networking at Hollin Hall. If you've not been to one of these, they are great fun. We have some guest speakers there who have speaking slots for no more than 10 minutes. It's a fantastic lunch, and you get to mingle with 30 or 40 other people and be able to talk about your business and network with them. So if you want any more details on that, just go to our website, click on the events page and book yourself on. 1st of December, subject to the autumn statement, we will have a webinar on the basis period reform and making tax digital. Now, this will affect any sole trader and any landlord who has rental income in above £10,000 a year. That's income, not profit. If you have that and if that applies to you, you need to go on this course. It's a major change in the way the HMRC are operating. And then on the final one of the year is on the 15th of December. And you ought to make it your New Year resolution to do a business plan. I'm sure Nigel will agree within this. We've got so much uncertainty going on at the moment. You need to have a plan going forward. And this is not just a 12-month plan. This should be a 5-year plan. And we'll be able to show you how to do that and what's involved. So now we're going to talk about and come on to the main topic of today, which is giving the customer that wow experience. And I'm delighted to introduce Nigel Greener again, and I'm going to make him the presenter, and he can now take over from me and be able to talk about the customer journey. So over to you, Nigel.
Thank you, Stephen, and hi everybody. I'm hoping you can see my screen.
Yeah, you can.
Sorry, I'm struggling with what I can see here. Bear me a sec. Right, fine. So hi, I'm Nigel Greenwood. I have a small business called Simply Customer, and I've been mapping customer journeys and helping businesses improve their customer experience for the last 30 years. So I want to talk a little bit about customer experience and a bit about customer journey mapping as well. To give you an idea as to why customer experience matters, Harvard did some research, and there are only 3 key reasons why somebody will buy from you. Price, which competitors can undercut. Product, including the service that you offer, which competitors can match. And customer experience. And what they found amongst consumers is that the customer experience makes up 70% of the buying decision. So it's incredibly important. And customer experience isn't just customer service. Our definition is it's everything that a customer or a potential customer can see, hear, feel, and touch about your organisation. As a quick story, there's a league table produced every year about the customer experience leaders in the UK. For the first 3 years, Amazon were number 1. Year 4, they slipped to 3rd because they'd been in the press for the way they were structured to avoid paying tax in the UK, and people didn't like that. And then the following year, they slipped to 5th because they'd been in the press again about the way they treated their employees. So they came across as a bit of a mean-spirited bully, and that impacted customers' perception of them and therefore the customer experience. So it's incredibly important. And what's really important is to make sure you can look at your business through your customer's eyes. This is something that actually Stephen commented on. It's on my website, and I used to have it on my business cards. A simple puzzle, just asking which number space is the car in. And if you look at the numbers, there are not many people that can work out what number space that is within 10 seconds. Interestingly, a 4-year-old can. I stole this from a primary school test. The reason that you're struggling to work out what the number is because you're looking at this from the wrong angle. This is a company car park, and you're looking at it from a company point of view. But if you look at it from a customer point of view, the answer becomes really obvious. And that's what customer journey mapping is all about. The other piece on customer experience in terms of how important it is and how customer journey mapping fits in is that it helps you identify small issues and small changes that you can make to improve your business and the customer experience. And that really matters. Um, I'm assuming a lot of you will have heard of Sir David Brailsford and what he did with the British Olympic cycling team, taking them from no hopers to world and Olympic champions in a very short space of time. And he did that through a theory called the aggregation of marginal gains, which he developed. And it's basically change is difficult, big change is especially difficult. But if you can change 100 things each by 1%, you will have a huge impact. And to show what sort of impact you could have, this isn't an example of how bad my maths is. This is saying that somebody who rates you 5 out of 5 for the customer experience is 6 times more likely to stay with you and buy from you again and recommend you than somebody who only rates you 4.8 out of 5. So even if you've already got a really good customer experience, any small improvements you can make will have a big impact. And over the years, I've analysed hundreds of thousands of customer comments and complaints and compliments. And I'm quite a simple guy. So I got down to saying there's only 6 things that all customers want. When you map a customer journey, you're going to map the touch points that customers will see, and you're going to map the routes between them. And each time you do, you need to look at these 6 things, work out which ones should apply, and if they do apply. And if they don't apply but should, work out how you can make a change. And none of these are rocket science. I'll run through them really quickly. So the first one is make it easy. So making things obvious, as few steps as possible for the customer. Then setting their expectations. So make it clear what's going to happen, when it will happen, and how it will happen. Don't oversell the product or service, and make sure that after sales is just as consistent as for your sales process. And then understand the promises that you make, whether they're explicit or implicit. So if you talk about a quality product or a quality service, what do you mean by quality? Because a customer may have a completely different idea. Have a key promise: if we let you down, we will fix it. But make sure you've got clear service standards, not only throughout your business, but also with any suppliers that you have. And then the next 3 are keeping them informed. So updating them on progress, engage with them on social media, make sure that you send information that's relevant to them, that you understand their needs. And use their language refers to don't use jargon. What you understand, customers may well not. So make sure that you use language they would understand. Treat them as an individual. So using the name, remembering what they've bought from you, listening to them, finding out the needs, and just saying things like what we can do for you is, rather than saying things like our process now is this. And the final one is put it right if it goes wrong. So using empathy, apologise if you had to complain, using active listening, and always try and put them in the position they would have been in if it hadn't gone wrong. And a customer journey, so you will have lots of different customer journeys in your businesses, but they all have 5 stages. So you start with awareness, where they become aware of you as an organisation, or aware that they need to do something with your organisation. Consideration is where they get the information to decide how they want to interact with you. Then you've got the actual interaction, and then the ongoing relationship. And then finally, at some point, they will exit as a customer. And those are the key elements of a customer journey. And I'm going to run through quickly how you can map one. Ideally, you need to have a face-to-face workshop. It normally takes about 2 hours. The best way to do it is in a room, use magic paper as a whiteboard on a roll. That's because you're going to map the journey in the workshop, but then you'll need to take it away to be designed. And magic paper is just a brilliant thing for doing that. You can get it from Amazon for less than £30, and it's absolutely superb. The people that you need in the room are anybody from any department that has an impact on that customer journey. And there are 2 types of people. So you'll need a senior person from that department because they're the decision makers, but they're the people that will know what should happen. you also need to have somebody that actually interacts with customers from that department, because they're the ones that know what actually does happen. And quite often that's different from what should happen. Your objective is to map the journey, so all the touch points and the routes between them, and the questions to ask basically come down to: what does the customer want to know now? What do we want the customer to do? Is this obvious from a customer point of view? Where can the customer go? What will the customer need to do next? It's always focused on the customer. Although it looks like sometimes you're mapping a business process, all you're interested in is what will the customer see next. You're not mapping everything that happens behind the scenes that a customer won't see. And I've done a really simple example of a customer journey map for you. The idea behind a journey map is that you create a picture that also has some words to back it up. And the reason for that is that 2/3 of people get information more quickly from a picture than they do from words. So if you can create a really clear picture of the customer journey and identify the issues within it and then detail those issues, you're supplying information in a really digestible form. If you start the left-hand side with awareness and you start to write down the touch points where a customer could start. Now, this is an inbound call to a contact center. And this customer could Google for how do I get an answer to so-and-so, or they could talk to an existing customer. They could go on the website, Facebook page. They might have some documentation from the organization, or there might be a local office that they could go to. In this case, it's a housing association. And you can start to add issues. Now, I use warning triangles. And in this case, the issues are it's hard to find the right phone number on the website, and the Facebook page isn't kept up to date. Then you start to map the consideration. Now, I've cheated a little bit on this journey map because you'll notice that whether they start with office, leaflet, Facebook page, word of mouth, I take everybody through the website. And in this case, where can the customer go to get answers to a query? They're either going to go to the FAQ section, and if they do and get their answer, then they'll just carry on the normal tenant journey. If they don't get the answer, they'll go to Contact Us page, or they can go straight to the Contact Us page. And there they'll be given a phone number. From that phone number, they then start to phone the organisation, and they have to navigate a menu system, which there's an issue there, it's quite complex. And then they're put on hold, waiting to talk to an advisor. And again, you see there's an issue there, which is the length of time that they have to wait. Then you get to the interaction piece, where they're actually engaging with staff. There's a potential issue that they might start to talk to somebody, find they're talking to the wrong department, and have to be transferred and repeat the information, which creates an issue. But in this case, if the query is not resolved, what they'll have to do is phone back. So you can see the arrow going back to the menu system. And this is the same with a lot of organisations. They'll have a KPI for the call centre in terms of the length of the call, but they don't look at first-time resolution. And that's a key thing from a customer experience point of view. So it's not just bringing out problems within the process, but it's bringing out problems with the way that staff are measured and rewarded. If the query is resolved, then in this case, they get sent a customer satisfaction survey and they carry on their normal tenant journey. If it's not resolved at some point, you will get exit. So they get fed up and they leave the organisation. And one of the things, if you remember when I talked about the 6 things, and the first one was make it easy, you need to make it as easy as possible for somebody to exit your organisation, to treat them as well as you would have done as a new customer, because that retains the customer experience, the warm feelings towards you as a business, and means even though they're not doing business with you anymore, they're much more likely to come back or to recommend you to others. When you've done the workshop and you're starting to detail the issues, it's important to put the customer side and the business side of this. And the reason for that is that it helps you prioritize which issues you're going to address. So from a customer point of view, it's hard to find a phone number on a website. The business aspect there is that in this case, the tenants are already frustrated when they get through to the call centre. That means they tend to be angry and sometimes abusive towards people in the call centre. That generates churn within call centre operators and increases costs. So make sure you always show what the business impact is as well as the impact on the customer. There are some tools you could use to design journey map. There's a list here for you. The one that I always use and the one that this last one that you've seen is based on is PowerPoint. So it's available. You've got lots of things that you could use. It's very easy to use. And if you want to add icons, you can always find those online. So some of the icons that I've used in my map, I've had designed, but others I've just taken from the internet. So it just makes it a much clearer picture. You can use some of the other tools, and I've designed that in a certain order so that the further down you go, the more complexity you get and the more cost you get. But if you've not done journey mapping before, I'd advise you just to start with PowerPoint. It will meet most needs. And all I've mentioned so far is doing journey mapping to identify issues. But what you need to do is then take those and start to make improvements. And the way that I would recommend is that you have a second workshop. So we call it an innovation workshop, where you'll review the map and the issues. You'll do brainstorming and prioritize potential solutions, which means you can then agree an action plan. And the sort of things you need for this are a larger version of the journey map, because then people can see it. You'll start to work through the issues one by one. Have flip charts and post-it notes so people can start to make suggestions. Have a process for voting on and prioritising those suggestions. And most importantly, in terms of materials, have chocolate, especially if you're doing it in an afternoon, because you need to keep the energy levels high and you need to keep people moving through this fairly quickly. And then the final bit from me is that mapping a customer journey is incredibly useful, but it creates a snapshot of your organisation and it helps you identify issues which you could address, but it's a one-off process. And what you need to do is to use that as a springboard to start making continual small improvements in your business. Again, using the aggregation of marginal gains piece, get used to making small regular changes and you'll have a dramatic impact on your business. And the most important way to do this is by gathering and using customer and employee feedback. Now, about a third of the organisations in the UK gather customer feedback. About 10% use it, but only 5% then tell the customers that they've changed as a result. And there are 4 key questions to ask, which are: what did we do well, so you could do more of it? What could we do better, so they'll tell you how to improve? What else could we do? So potentially that means you can offer more products and services. And then the final one is, would you be happy to recommend us? That gives you 2 things. One, if they say, no, I'm not happy to recommend, you've got the chance to ask another question in terms of why. So you can dig into the way they feel about you that much more. But just by asking that, it tells customers that you're looking for recommendations and it will generate more business for you. Changes to make are just small, simple, regular changes. But the most important part of this process is that you need to tell your customers and your employees that you've listened to their feedback, that you've made changes, and that you value their opinion. And if you keep telling them about the changes you're making, you create a virtuous circle where they will then proactively start to give you more and more suggestions. And therefore you can carry on improving. The customers feel really involved. It generates more customer loyalty, increases sales, increases customer lifetime value, and generates referrals.
That sounds great. Fantastic information there. Have you got any examples of how this has affected some of the businesses you've worked with?
Yeah, so the classic example is a small B2B company that did broadband and mobile. And we mapped the customer journey. And the first thing we found was they were putting 80% of the time and effort into attracting new clients, but they weren't growing. And when we looked at the process for sending out quotations and the way the quote was designed, they were only selling to 1 out of 4 customers. So we redesigned the quote and we doubled the conversion rate. So suddenly they were selling to 1 out of 2. And then what we also found as we mapped the journey was that they were great at the sales process, installing the equipment, etc., signing people up on a 2-year contract. And then we said, okay, so once all this has been done, the customer's got the training, what's the next thing they see? And the next thing the customer saw was in 22 months' time, a phone call from the company asking if they were going to renew the contract. So they literally ignored them.
Mm.
Um, so what we did, we put an extra step in the process whereby they actually recruited another member of staff and they made a promise to the customer that every month they would monitor the bills and they would make sure they were still on the best deal that they could get on the market. And if not, they would switch them. Um, they objected initially to the extra cost, but what happened, because we put that process in place, they went from losing 80% of the customers at the end of the 2 years to now they lose less than 1%. So it's had a
Wow,
dramatic impact on the business.
absolutely.
We've got other examples as well where you look at cross sales, etc. And it's literally small changes you can make that just have a really dramatic impact.
Sounds fascinating. Certainly, the stat you gave at the beginning that 70% of people buy on experience alone. It's certainly, I know they don't buy on price that much, but 70% on experience shows how important this topic is. And thank you for that input. I'd just like to move on, and uh, I've, as you can see, we're just going to summarize what we've talked about there. So it's all about the customer journey. It's all about keeping the customer happy. Now, in our game, and certainly in a lot of people businesses, it's all about relationships and it's building that relationship up with your customer and making sure that you understand your customer, you understand how they operate, and you can talk to them at your level. And bear in mind that it's not just you that's doing it, the senior person that's doing it. So everybody working for your company, all your team are advocates for your business. So you need to know that everybody in that team has some training on customer experience and understanding the customer so they know how to talk to the customer and so on. You want to give them that wow factor. They want to come away from dealing with you, whether it's ourselves as Harts or whether it's with Nigel or any of the customers and businesses out there, of feeling, wow, that's a great company to deal with. They understand me, they know what they're doing about, we know what their costs are, and we can build up a great relationship with them. So it's understanding all that as well. So what can you do? Well, I think the easiest way is to just explain a little bit about what we do. So actually, when clients first come to visit us, we have a welcome pack which we send out, and that actually gives you details of how to get to our offices, where to park. We even have our own drinks menu when they get to reception. We have a show reel in reception which shows you some of the stuff that we do. We have a list of available testimonials. Those are on our website. We even give you change for the car park. If the car park is full, there's a public car park literally opposite the office. We will give you change. We'll pay for your car park space. So it's giving all that in a welcome pack. It also applies to our Cheadle office because we have an office in Cheadle. We have now a welcome pack for our Cheadle office as well. So it's creating that first impression rather than just saying, yeah, we'll see you in our office and the details are below because the details are on your email signature. We send out this welcome pack so that people know exactly where to go, where to park, how to get into the office, who they're going to meet, and so on, and along with all our details. So that's something which creating that first impression does make a massive difference. We also talk about telephone manner. Answer the phone within 3 rings. Don't let that phone ring. And I know Nigel's there. He's talking about being kept on hold. People don't like being kept on hold. It's the bane of our lives, and certainly when we're trying to speak to someone at HMRC and we're on hold for 10, 20, 30 minutes at a time, by the time you get through to somebody, you're ready to really have a go. So answer the phone promptly and always try and be upbeat on the phone. And try smiling when you're talking to people on the phone as well. It does make a difference. It'll be interesting to see when you walk around your own office, whether you see people gurning into the phone because they're trying to smile when they're talking to people. But it does make a difference. One thing which is my particular bugbear is never actually say you're busy. People always ask me if I'm busy, and I say, no, business is great, it's fantastic. Because if you give that impression that you're busy all the time, then people think, well, you haven't got time for me, or I'm not the most important client or customer that you've got. So never ever say that you're busy. Always think of some other phrase which you can come back to people with. One that we use is business is great, we're looking for more. We've got plenty on, which is fantastic. We're always looking to take on new businesses. We're always willing to talk to people, but we now actually turn around and say we're busy to customers and clients. And you can use this same methodology as well. And always be positive and say that you can help. If people are coming to you for whatever reason, you've no doubt got the resources to be able to deal with in most cases. And if you haven't, or you've got a query, say you'll come back to them within 24 hours. We had a new client potentially come to us yesterday. A potential new client came to me yesterday and said, look, I didn't know the answer to your question, but I'll come back to you, and we're having a phone call today at 11 o'clock. So it's always a question of managing their expectations and saying, look, I don't know, but I will let you know by a certain time. That again creates a great impression, a good customer loyalty. Are all your customers aware of all the services that you offer? Do they always just buy one particular service from you or one particular product from you? Make them aware of everything that you do. Send out a newsletter or drop them an email, or have some sort of communication to them to say that, look, you need to use this service with us, but did you know we did this, 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 and this? So always be positive with them and always try and make them aware of all the services that you can offer. And then you just listen and respond to the customers. Nigel has talked about customer feedback forms and acting on that feedback. I know when I talk to clients, we can ask, we'll say, well, how's it going in your business? What's news? And they will talk for hours about their own business. And I'm sure your customers and your own clients will do the similar sort of thing. You just need to ask the right sort of questions. Listen to them, listen to what they've got to say, and see if there's anything else you can offer them as a result. Could they benefit from anything else that you do? Can you be a lot more proactive in doing what we're doing? So these sorts of webinars, for instance, this is a proactive way of getting to our clients and saying to them, look, we're offering you this free service. You can get to understand all sorts of topics and issues on our webinars. And if you miss them, it's all on our YouTube channel. I'd never done a webinar until lockdown hit 2.5 years ago or whatever, and now we do them all the time. If you're not doing them, just do it. You'll get the hang of it. It's not difficult, and it's very easy to set up a YouTube channel as well. So just try and be proactive in everything that you do. And the old adage that the customer or the client is always right still applies, even if they're wrong. You've got to have a way of actually telling them what do we mean by that. If you disagree, do it in a way that maybe suggests an alternative. Say, well, that's not quite right, but maybe if we did it this way, that would maybe work, and that would give you the result that you're trying to look for. So you're always creating solutions, and you're not having to give them a problem, a further problem. They're coming to you as one of your customers because you've got a solution to one of their problems. So don't turn around and say, well, no, we can't do that. You'll have to think of something else. No, you create the solution and talk to the customers. They will give you everything that you need. And finally, look at these 5 questions which Nigel has touched on already. Why are we doing what we're doing? When do we need to do it by? How are we going to actually do it? And who's going to do it? And what is it that we're going to do? And have a think about that in relation to your customer experience. Finally, aim to provide stunning customer service. That's what it's all about. People are 70% are buying on experience, as we've heard already this morning. So make that experience fantastic. Make it so they really want to talk to you. Customers should get that wow factor that they think, wow, what a firm to deal with. This is fantastic. And get your team involved with all the ideas. Not one person can have all the ideas for your firm. So get ideas from everybody that's working for you and try and implement the good ones that are out there, those that are going to improve customer experience and so on, and do as much as you possibly can in that area. Finally, has anybody got any questions that they want to ask? Feel free to unmute yourself, stick them in the chat box. If you want Nigel's details, if you want to take matters further with Nigel and map your own customer journey, feel free to get in contact. Nigel, do you want to put your details in the chat box so people can have a look at that and they can get in touch with you and talk about the customer journey? Brilliant.
Will do. By the way, I think the ideas that you gave were absolutely great, Steve. Can I just add one more?
Absolutely.
Just on a wow factor piece, a really simple thing that you could do is to use handwritten notes occasionally. So whether that's to employees or to customers, and it might just be a little postcard just to say, thanks for the call yesterday, thanks for the feedback you gave me, I really appreciate it. Just that the fact that they're handwritten and sent out makes you stand out from your competition, and it really does create that wow moment for a customer. It's a really simple thing to do, but really, really effective.
That's a great idea, and I think it's something we should have a look at as well. Even if we just get them printed but handwritten inside, we can get a thank you cards and just handwrite the thank you cards to people. I think that's a great idea. And if anybody else wants to take that up, that would be fantastic. Has anybody else got any questions or anything they want to raise on the customer journey or anything about giving clients that wow experience? Feel free to jump in. Nigel's put his details in the chat box there, so if you want to make a note of those or you want to get in touch with him privately, feel free to do so, and he'll be explaining how all that works. In the meantime, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. A special thank you to Nigel Greenwood for his input on the customer journey. It's been a fascinating insight. Some of the things that you picked up, 2/3 people get information from pictures rather than words. I think that's very important as to how you actually give that information out. And we do that sometimes when we're producing accounts. We can do some in pictorial format, whereas other people will actually look at the numbers. So it is very interesting to see that. But again, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Special thank you for Nigel for joining us this morning. We look forward to seeing you on the 17th of November if you want to join us at Hollin Hall for our business club lunch. If not, it's the 1st of December for Making Tax Digital and Basis Period Reform, subject to what the Chancellor is going to talk about next week, but we will keep you in touch. So that's fantastic, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next webinar.